Well, hello, folks. How are you? Lovely to see you. And apologies from that guy, Vince. I'll hit the button. It'll make it a lot easier. That guy. He wants to stay in the chat, but he's off to a My Place meeting in 30 minutes. So, g'day, Vince. I'm sorry I was on the phone when you rang. That's why I couldn't answer your call. And I've been on the phone all friggin' day. Pretty much how my life goes at the moment. So, thanks for your help. And we will chat. Maybe give me a call after your My Place meeting if I'm still awake. And we will catch up tomorrow. Lots to talk about. Speaking of lots to talk about, let's get some housekeeping out of the way first of all. Thank you very much to everybody who rang yesterday to see if I was all right. Yes, I'm fine. I did tell you a little while back that shows might be a little bit higgledy-piggledy for a while, simply because of time constraints and location. I've had to do a bit of traveling recently. Just sort of between Sunshine Coast and Gold Coast, more or less, but just to have meetings and chats and talks and all that sort of stuff. And it's made it very difficult to be back here to prep for a show and do all that sort of stuff. So I do apologise. That is going to phase out, and we will get back to, what do we say in the business? We will resume normal programming in the near future. That is the intent at any rate. Had some really good chats with some very talented people in the last few days, and I'm looking forward to being able to tell you more about that. That will probably begin in the next couple of weeks or so. Now, you know that we're getting a vehicle. We're going to be on the road. We're going to be doing shows from, well, anywhere, side of the road if we have to. But there are a couple of places where we are intending to turn up because there are other events on that you might like to be part of. And if not, you might want to come along and, be part of a show with us. We would love to have you if that is the case. Now, I've just been given some dates for Queensland that Ainsley would like us to attend. Now, I'm not sure if they're hard dates yet, but they are in October. Now, Ainsley, of course, Ainsley Bullion, great supporters of the Freedom Movement and wonderful, wonderful supporters of the Voice of Freedom. I can't thank Paul and his team enough, Paul and Michael, and we'll do what we can to help them out, of course. But if you were interested in learning more, I'll just silence my phone because Mirko is going to send me a million texts, aren't you, Mirko? The thing with Ainsley Bullion is that you might be a little bit worried about buying it. You'd never done it before. It can be quite a big deal. And particularly if you're looking at self-managed super funds too, you could be talking a considerable amount of wealth tied up in some precious metals. And you don't really know a great deal about it. So if you would like to learn more about that, then Ainsley Bullion are taking roadshows on the road, funnily enough. They will be doing one in fact, they're going to be doing 3 in Victoria in early October. I beg your pardon? Yes, early October. Now, there is going to be one in Echuca at the Rich River Golf Club, I think it is, at Echuca Moama on the 12th of October. They are going to be doing another one a couple of days later in Bairnsdale, down in Gippsland. And then I believe 2 or so weeks later, there will be one in Rosebud, down on the peninsula, the beautiful Victorian peninsula. And by then, Rosebud should have started to warm up a little bit, which would be nice. Bairnsdale too, maybe. Echuca Moama, beautiful part of the world. If you've never been there, would recommend you visit highly. And of course, they will still be recovering from the dreadful floods of, this time last year, really, wasn't it? The Murray in flood. She is a beautiful, beautiful river, but she is a hellish lady when she's in flood. And a lot of damage created around Rochester too, from memory, and Echuca. And Echuca was cut off. Echuca Moama was separated for quite some weeks, I'm thinking, from memory. So it'll be great to get into that area and catch up with a few of the locals that we met when we were in Shepparton there last year. And it'd be great to catch up, have a bit of a chat and see how things have changed. And we plan on coming into your area for a few days. So while Ainsley are going to do a show at Rich River on the 12th, and I'm sure if you ring Rich River, you can the Rich River Golf Club, you can book for that if you're in that area. I'm not sure, don't hold me to it, but I don't think there's a cost to it. So it's just an information evening. If you want to learn more about gold and silver, then Michael and the team, I think, will be there. And so will Cass. She'll give you a bit of a hand with self-managed super funds, answer any questions you have on that. And of course, they've asked if we can be there. So I'm happy to come down and maybe spend a couple of days around Echuca before the 12th to shoot a bit of video, tell a few stories of your stories. And if you've got a local business you'd like to promote, then I'm happy to come and help you promote it. So get in touch, Rachel at vofhq.com, and tell her where you are, what business you have, if you've got a business, and what you want to be involved in. Give us a contact number and an email address, and one of us will be in touch to line up a time where we can come and check you out, hear your story, film a bit of stuff around whatever it is that you make, if you're producing stuff for sale. I'm particularly interested in people who are manufacturing. If you're manufacturing anything, Australian manufacturing has to be supported and promoted in my book at all times. So get a hold of us if you've got something along those lines that you'd like to promote. We're very keen to help you in any way we can. So that's Echuca on the 12th. I think it's the 16th or the 17th in Bairnsdale of October. And then 2 weeks later in Rosebud. Now, it would make it very difficult for me to be in Rosebud and get back for the Queensland events, which I think are starting on the 31st of October. Now, those events, and there are a number of them. In fact, if I just give me a moment to have a look here on my phone, and I'll see if I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 events that will stretch from Toowoomba north to Rockhampton and south to Ballina. And if you want to learn more about that, I will be able to give you the dates. That's sort of starting at the end of October and going into November. And it will be running... Yeah, by the looks of it, there'll be a couple of little breaks in between that, so it won't be night after night after night. So if you're interested, by all means, email Rachel at vofhq.com asking for dates of the Queensland tours and places. But I think I can confidently tell you the places, just maybe not the dates as yet. But Toowoomba, Gympie, Caloundra, Bundaberg, Hervey Bay, Rockhampton and Ballina. They're the venues that we're looking to head to. And Paul and his team from Ainsley Bullion Brisbane, I'm sure, will be putting on those presentations. And if you've ever wanted to learn about gold and silver, how it doesn't lose value, how all world finances will and always have in the past defaulted back to gold and silver or precious metal. And that's where our base wealth comes from. Not out of bits of paper, not out of, printed little bits of paper the government give you, and certainly not out of the stale paper reports that you get out of your super fund. If you want to get control of your wealth, get into precious metals. And if you have a super fund, then maybe a self-managed super fund at this moment is the way to go. Now, I say this because if you haven't heard already today, the big news in the banking industry is the Macquarie Bank have decided they are no longer going to deal in cash. And by the end of 2024, you will not be able to deposit cash. You will not be able to receive cash inside any Macquarie Bank branch. The only way you will be able to deposit cash is through an ATM machine. Well, that'd be an ATM machine. So through an ATM or get it out. That was the only way you'll be able to extract cash. Now, if you wanted to go and extract $20,000 from a teller machine, good luck. I don't think they're going to be building those. So digital currency, very firmly in the mind of Macquarie Banking. They are telling, well, I assume it to be lies, because the big lie they are telling you is that only 1% of their transactions are cash related. Now, I don't know how many mum and dads bank with Macquarie Bank. Do you? Macquarie Bank, to my understanding, is more a corporate bank, not a merchant bank, but maybe it is a merchant bank. but it is not a mum and dad's bank. It's the stockbroker's bank. It's the lawyer's bank. It's, the very, very rich people's bank. And they may not have a great necessity to travel around with cash because they have their black Amex or their black Diners or whatever. And they're happy to live off the plastic because that's what they've been brought up to do, and they worship the wealth, not necessarily understanding that the wealth isn't in the paper or the plastic. Well, I'm sure they understand that, but they've given their souls away and are playing the game to get as much of the play money, as we're probably going to start to refer to it, in their pocket as they possibly can. So Macquarie Bank are on the way out. You watch the other banks follow. We've already seen ANZ and NAB reduce the amount of money that you can get out of a bank over the counter any day. I think it's a maximum of $3,000 in some people's cases, $5,000 in others. I did say a couple of weeks ago, because we were having some issues transferring money, the bank was saying we could only transfer in $5,000 lots, and we had a bit more than that to pay. Turns out we could adjust that, just not at the time, because we were a new client of the bank. So that is able to be adjusted, and you can transfer a lot more than that if you do it electronically. But you certainly can't walk into a branch and go and get a large amount of cash, not without giving them a lot of notice and answering a lot of questions. And we all know how that ends up. All right, so I've talked to you about Macquarie. I've talked to you about Echuca and the other events that are happening. So it's Echuca on the 12th. I want to say it is the 14th or 15th in Bairnsdale, and a couple of weeks later in Rosebud. And then from around the end of October, starting in Toowoomba and going north and then south, Ainsley will be doing a roadshow on gold and silver. And Cass Smith will be coming along to help you out with self-managed super funds, and we'll come along for the ride. So we'll put shows on in every town. We won't go and broadcast the Ainsley show. We'll let them do that. But we will go and put events on where you can come along and find us. We might be in a pub. We might be in a park. Wherever. We bring our own power these days. So we can be just about anywhere and put on a show. We look forward to seeing you there when I can give you the dates. I'll just firm those Queensland and Northern New South Wales dates up before I give them to you, just to make sure that they are for real. But I reckon we'll be just about at every one of those. Toowoomba, Gympie, Caloundra, Bundaberg, Hervey Bay, Rockhampton and Ballina. If you're interested in going, email Rachel at vofhq.com and put in the subject line Ainsley shows, or Ainsley shows. Ainsley shows will do. And we'll know what you're talking about, because I'm going to get you to email Rachel too if you want to come to our launch of this mobile studio and the launch of My Place Redlands, which well, we'll see what happens. Going to need a lot of local Redlands residents to step up and take control of this, because I'm not going to be spending as much time in the Redlands as I have been. But I'm very keen to get one going close to home. I know John Wilson wants to be a part of it in a big way, so you've probably got your number 2 card holder ready to go. And if you would like to come along to our opening, it is going to be a magnificent night. The venue that we have has really gone overboard for us, but we only have a limited number of tickets available for you to come. So and that number is about 80. So that's because we've got some invited guests that we're bringing in, and we've only got a venue of a certain size. Now, should demand, exceed 100, we might be able to expand that, but at the moment we're going to try and limit it to 100. So I don't think we're going to get swamped with too many more than that. But if you do want to come, please email Rachel at vofhq.com. It will be on Saturday, September the 30th. And as my housemate Sharon pointed out to me today, grand final day, AFL grand final day, I think. So the Brisbane Lions, as far as I'm aware, are still a shot to get into the grand final. I would understand and excuse you if you're a Brisbane Lions fan and they win the grand final that day and you can't get up out of the chair, or you're at another celebration. I would understand that. But if you're not into the AFL, then by all means come and join us. It'll be a great night. There'll be food trucks. You'll be able to get a feed, and you will be able to get a drink because the venue we're going to is licensed. In fact, it's pretty special. So looking forward to being able to introduce you to my good friend Steve, the owner and operator of such an establishment. And I've actually known this bloke since probably before he had a car license, but maybe just as he got his car license. He was a radio station technician, and he started his apprenticeship at a radio station I was working at many, many years ago. So it's really good to remake our friendship, because it was a great friendship that we had back in the day. And it's really great to rediscover all of that. And he's just opened a magnificent new business and said, "Hey, listen, why don't you do it here?" And interestingly, he's vax injured. So I'll let him tell his story. But he's wide awake and was, I think, probably more coerced than anything else into the position, and wound up suffering from it. So he's one of us, and very much behind the movement, and helping support the voice of freedom going forward. I mean, can't ask for more than that. People who are waking up, and I think I said in a show the other night that I have a very dear friend who, for the longest time, just doesn't want to discuss these things, just doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to rattle. Doesn't want to have an opinion one way or the other, if you like, be definitive. All of a sudden, I'm getting text messages with information and all this "did you know" sort of stuff coming through, and it is as I predicted, and have been predicting for a while. When these people are waking up, when they're slowly waking up, they're finding information out, and this happened to be on the no vote, or particularly the yes argument for the no vote, for the yes vote, and he was horrified by it, absolutely horrified. Then I started pointing out a few other things, and he was equally as horrified about that. He started sending me a few more bits and pieces in the next days that he'd found, and they were much older things, which made me think, oh, well, he's going back and looking. But obviously is trying to tell me, or tell it to me as it's brand new information. "Oh, mate, did you know this? This is," and you've got to be patient when that happens, folks, because it's what we wanted. It's what we've wanted. All right. So we can't say, yeah, I know about that, move on, and just dismiss them, because we have to think back to when we made those little discoveries, right? When we started, when the first pieces of the jigsaw started to clip together, and how excited we were to try and share that with somebody, right? And more often than not, it was somebody who knew a lot more than us, and they probably said, yeah, keep looking. There's more rabbit holes, there's more this, whatever, in the jargon that we speak. Well, we can't do that to these people. We've got to encourage them. We've got to be as excited for them as they are for them. They think they've got this new information. Sure, we can tell them, yep, look, that's older information, but it's really exciting that you found it. And did you know from that bit of information, it leads to this? I was having a conversation with a gentleman today about some lights for the studio. And he didn't really know the Voice of Freedom, or didn't know anything about the Voice of Freedom. And I started to explain a little bit about what we do. We've got to be a bit careful, obviously. And I got to a point where I said, no, I tend to talk about the things that mainstream media don't, and particularly things like how mainstream media have been given a hundreds and hundreds of $1 million worth of leg up by the federal government in the form of not having to pay any tax for 12 months, or getting a 100% tax rebate, all because they would stifle the conversation around the cold and the jab. He was horrified, absolutely horrified. He had no idea, and now, of course, he's a lot more interested in what we do. And I've received an email from him today. He's obviously gone and watched a show or two here and there, and is very keen to get behind us too, which is great. Because he is an Australian business. He manufactures his products in Adelaide, and they're very, very good products, top of the line products. So I'm very happy to get behind and support Australian products. And if he's happy to get behind and support the voice of freedom and whatever is coming next, then we'd love to have them on board, just like your business. So give it a think. We're not going to charge you 2 arms and 4 legs like the mainstream media are either. Just be aware of that. We do need fuel money, though. That's the other thing. All of this, while we have spent a lot of money, we have spent all the money to get set up, to get insurance, to get roadside assistance, because I think roadside assistance is very important when you're traveling, and this is an RV. Things can go wrong. Now, unfortunately, I am a little bit bigger, just a little bit, only a 15th, a little bit bigger than what the RACQ will cover. So I don't know if there's any of you out there, truck drivers particularly. I guess I'm looking now at some sort of roadside assistance for heavier vehicles. It's because of the length of the vehicle and the weight of the vehicle. I guess RACQ can't have a large tow truck in every part of the country. So they've got to put a limit on it, and I know that they have a limit on their trucks. So heavy vehicles, what happens there? I mean, I'm not sure. Can the Indians that are driving the B doubles actually fix a tire on them, or do they get serviced? They can't drive them very well. I can't imagine they could fix a tire. Might be fun to watch. But if you know of any roadside assistance kind of things for heavier vehicles, then I'm not trying to preempt that I'm going to need towing at any stage, but should that happen, I want to know if I can get it. So please email me, carl@vofhq.com, if you know anything about roadside assistance for heavier vehicles. That would be very beneficial if you could help me out there. What else am I going to? Oh, okay, let me show you this. This is an interesting little piece that's popped up in the last little while, particularly when I say the last little while, I'm talking the last 24 hours or so. So Pfizer's South African contract is available for public perusal. There is no real reason to believe that the Pfizer proposal is any different, or the South African Pfizer proposal is any different to any other government proposal. What they are saying here is that there is a very interesting paragraph on page 21.5.5 states the purchaser further acknowledges, that's the country that's buying this poison from Pfizer, further acknowledges that the long-term, not that any, but the long-term effects and efficacy of the vaccine are not currently known, and that there may be adverse effects of the vaccine that are not currently known. And this is and it is as most contracts go. I do feel it is very biased in the direction of Pfizer, and there is no protection at all. In fact, the people are not considered outside of being cattle in this, and the government, I'm disgusted and dismayed that they have come up with this agreement. But I'm scrolling down to the appropriate page, and you can see for yourself here the highlighted piece in purchaser acknowledgement. Now, what they're talking about there is giving them indemnity against any kind of prosecution, and every government that has signed to get this particular poison will have had this inserted in the contract. And I remember that we did talk about it at the time. So where does that leave us? Well, you can always terminate a contract, and they can always try and get the money out of us, because the contract, I believe, stipulates that we are to keep buying somewhere in the vicinity of $100 million worth. I want to say it's more, actually. $186 million is the number that's coming to mind. $186 million worth of vaccines a year for the next 3 years at least. So That's what that contract stipulates. And the Australian government can't get out of it, they say. And of course, the Australian people have no recourse because our people working in the service industries, that's the industries meant to be serving and servicing the people, industries like morticians, industries like doctors doing autopsies, coroners making findings, are making findings, I believe, either erroneously or deliberately obscuring the real reason for a person's death. I have reason to believe this is the case. I've had some people die recently close to me, die suddenly, and I've been very active in trying to get autopsy details about their deaths to a point where I've actually known, well, I didn't know at the time, but I became reasonable friends with a mortician where the body went. And I asked about the blood that was coming out of the body. I wanted to find out whether or not it was stringy, as we've seen before. There certainly were clots in it. So these findings are being obscured. People who die suddenly behind the wheel of a car and have a car accident are deemed to have died of their injuries in a car accident. They don't call it a medical emergency or whatever. Even if the injuries don't seem to be terribly, visible, you don't have to have visible injuries to be killed in a car accident. Obviously, broken neck, doesn't show too much. But I fear that that's what we're seeing. And God, all you've got to do is look at the trash pages, news.com. Every day there is another 20, 30 or early 40 someone dying suddenly. Today in Tasmania, they buried a 16-year-old girl who died suddenly last week. Just healthy as buggery, never woke up. A couple of weeks ago, another young bloke, I'm not sure if it was in northern New South Wales or the Gold Coast, he was staying at his grandparents' place, had a great weekend on the Sunday night, went to bed, never woke up. Now, he was, I think, less than 18. He was under 18 or wasn't far over 18, if that was the case. These kids are dying suddenly. A former Mr. Olympia, Australian entrant in Mr. Olympia, a bodybuilder, 34 years old, found dead on Monday. Now, not sure whether or not that had more to do with death at his own hand or death at something else, death to do with something else. But I would be very interested to find out the realities of that. Bodybuilders, of course, are known to stick all sorts of substances into their bodies and have been known to stress their organs in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways, given that the sculpting that they do for their body isn't necessarily 100% great for the body, I believe. But having seen the sculpting that I've done on my body, folks, you would know that you wouldn't take any body sculpting lessons from me, or advice for that matter. So yeah, keep that as it may. But every day there are 30, 40, 20-something-year-olds dying suddenly. No cause has been attributed. An ex-NBA basketballer in the States, big name, carked it yesterday, overnight, 42 years of age. Every day, more and more and more people, young people, celebrity-type people, sports stars are dying. Now, the only reason that they're making the shit pages on news.com.au and the other sort of filth pages is because they have to talk about something. And if you notice that news really isn't it. I noticed the Australian, I might have to start buying a newspaper again, or at least paying for that one online. The Australian at least looks to be starting to tell some stories that have some real teeth to them. It looks like they're starting to investigate things again. They're starting to ask good questions. So I don't know, wash my mouth out, but I may have to go and check out the Australian on a bit more regular basis. I only think the first 4 pages are worth reading, but anyway, it is what it is. Did you see that professor in Bunbury a couple of days ago? She was filmed telling everybody that if you're a supporter, you're at base racist and at worst stupid. She's come out trying to defend herself, saying that she's been misquoted and, been taken out of context. Well, I've watched the whole thing. She hasn't been taken out of context at all. But this is the kind of double speak that these bastards who have taken $494 million so far of our money and squandered it under the name of helping our Aboriginal brothers and sisters get out of the shit that they are in. Bronwyn Bishop, and I think I played it, released something a couple of weeks ago about an Aboriginal lady with 6 children living on a cement slab outside of Alice Springs while she was getting cancer treatment. Living on a cement slab with 6 kids outside of Alice Springs. Now, where are those 11 identified as Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander representatives in our Houses of Parliament? Where were they? And more particularly, where is the Land Council? Where is the Land Council for that area in Alice Springs? And where's the money to help that lady? Why wasn't she put into a motel? Why wasn't she given some crisis accommodation? Why wasn't she put in a bloody caravan or a tent somewhere safer, somewhere closer, something with facilities? Because let's face it, we're giving you $39 million a year and we're seeing nothing back for it. Nothing at all. We are seeing poverty and heinous crimes committed against children and adults too. But oh no, we see those black politicians, certain members of that black cohort that is going around Parliament screaming, yes, yes, yes. We see them wearing their beautiful $2,000 suits, their pearl necklaces, their diamond rings and their ruby earrings. We see them flying first class or business class on the people's purse because they don't pay for it, the bastards. The people do. We see them living in very nice mansions. We see them not having to pay for taxis or Ubers because they get supplied government cars. But what we don't see is any of the money we provide going to help women like that lady sitting on a slab outside of Alice Springs with 6 kids getting cancer treatment. Well, clearly not getting cancer treatment on the slab, but that is disgusting, and that's why this referendum must fail. Must fail. And I think even the government's starting to understand that now. It's interesting to see that there is some mainstream media activation, shall we say, on what the suspended Dr. William Bay did with his High Court challenge or High Court case that was knocked back, refused, as many people said. And Tricky, I hope you've taken a big dose, mate. You've got to shut your mouth. You got to learn more, mate. Shut your mouth. Watch, listen, learn. Because you just, anyway. Waste of time. It is a very, very significant point that the suspended Dr. William Bay raised. It is a deep law point. So I do understand when people don't understand what's going on. What I fail to understand is why people shoot their mouths off when they don't understand, rather than trying to learn. So that to me is a grab for potential viewers, I suppose, followers. And that's a bit sad, although I know he needs them because they're deserting him hand over fist. So welcome to those ex-Tricky followers who found the voice of freedom. Thanks for coming. Nice to have you. You won't see that sort of shit here, I promise. You'll see other sorts of shit, but not that kind of shit particularly. So anyway, Marcia Langton, Professor Marcia Langton. She's one of these do-good uppity, and I'm going to call her uppity because that's exactly what she came across as, superior. All right, she came across as superior to anybody who didn't believe as she believed. And of course, she's a professor. She's been to university, probably has 15 letters after her name. You know, of course we've got to believe her. We can't be as smart as her. We didn't do all that education. No, of course. We'd be idiots, stupid, or racist. I think Marcia Langton will forever be known and responsible for the deplorables comment that killed the referendum, because her comments are right up there with Hillary Clinton's, calling all the Trump supporters a basket of deplorables. She should resign in embarrassment from any public position she holds. She should give back any public funds she has been paid. And she should go and sit on that fucking slab in Alice Springs and discuss with the lady who's there with 6 kids why she's there. Marcia Langton, go and sit on the slab with that lady. Fix the problem. You stupid bitch. That's how I feel about it. Come up with something that ridiculous. I did put in a request to talk to her. Apparently, she's not talking to people. Who would have thought? Oh, God, folks. Let me see if I can get onto something a little less exciting. I'm going to have to get rid of that screen, and I'm going to want to share another screen. Give me a second here. Here's some interesting and slightly concerning news. Sexual assaults and ritualised violence have been uncovered in a review of the Victorian racing industry. Anybody who's known jockeys and known people in that industry, and I have known people in particularly the Victorian horse racing industry for many, many, many years, there's always been some goings on there. There have been some notorious murders that took place with owners and trainers and all sorts of things. There's been all sorts of crimes committed on and off the track. But by the looks of it, they're now starting to have a look at sexual assaults and ritualised violence in sport. They just happen to be starting with the Victorian racing industry. Now, I could draw some probably long bows as to why they might start at the Victorian racing industry. So I might leave that off for a moment. But yeah, no, I won't say any more about that. I might get myself in trouble. But watch this space. I wouldn't be at all surprised that we're going to hear more about this. So harassment, abuse, sexual abuse, rape, punitive punishments, ostracizing, all sorts of, all the best kinds of things that you would find in any kind of a culture that wants to keep something quiet. Well, this review by, well, I'm not exactly sure who put it together, seems to suggest that sexual assaults and ritualized violence are all over the place in Victorian racing industries, more so in the thoroughbred industry than anywhere else. They did review all the different kinds of 3 different sports. I guess that means harness and trotting, thoroughbred. What else do they race horses in? Oh, jumps, probably. So they would have looked at all of those, and some people have come out and told some absolute horror stories about it. And I think we'll probably hear more of that. Will it extend into other sporting areas? That is the $64,000 question. What happens when it gets into AFL or NRL territory? And some of the bullying and bastardization that went on back in the day with those coaches and teams. And it certainly happened. But it did back in the day. That's just how it was. God, let me sit you down one day and tell you how radio is. Well, it used to be. Now they've figured out smarter ways to bully you, but it's still bullying all the same. Have you received your postal letter yet? If you do, and you live in Queensland, it may look a bit like this. This is turning up in the mail now, and attached to it is a postal vote, and you are encouraged to use that postal vote. Where are you encouraged to send that postal vote? Well, to that reply paid Archerfield address. Now, I can't find out who owns that reply paid Archerfield address, but we have found in the past in certain Queensland state elections, particularly, but it may have happened in federal, where Liberal how to vote postal vote applications have gone out just like this and been returned to the office of the local member. Now, you might think that if you do that, your vote is safe. They're just going to pass it on to the Electoral Commission and you don't have to pay the postage. Bullshit. You've sent it to them. They can open it. Right? And from there, who knows what happens to it, depending on which way you vote and which way they want you to vote. So postal voting, nah. Take the opportunity, if you are going to vote in this referendum, to go out and meet some like-minded folks in the line and make some new friendships. Talk about my place. Figure out a venue and get a hold of us. We'll come and visit you. We'll come and show your town off. If you have a tourist operation, you're interested in promoting your area, we will come and do it. If you've got something we can live stream from, if you've got an event, if you've got a festival or whatever, we'll come and join you for a week if that's what it takes. But we want to come and help promote business, local communities from the ground up. That's what my place is all about, and that's what Voice of Freedom has been about from the word go, building a community of like-minded people. If you want to do that, don't send your postal vote into places like this because the bastards are likely to steal it. Just my opinion. Who knows? The indicator might be this. A beautiful poster there or a picture showing the postal vote application forms. And right above it, of course, Dutton and Co. Saying, yeah, send it to us. So be easy on that one. Bit of good news out of Fauci today. Fauci now admits that the COVID vaccines do cause myocarditis. I haven't read the entire story or seen this interview firsthand, so take that for what you will. But I would suggest go and do your own research on that. There's plenty available on Telegram. I just haven't been able to get into it and see too much on it in the last few days. Just having a think about anything else I had to tell you. I think I've gone through everything. Oh, no, there was one thing I wanted to show you. Common law types, listen up. Now, and those people who aren't really sure whether or not there is a common law argument to be fought or not, I'm going to show you a letter. Now, this letter is real. It is a confirmed, absolute, and I've forgotten the word, but it's real. All right, it's been authenticated. That's the word I'm looking for. So this letter, which you may or may not be able to read on your TV, is the decision of the court in the matter of the People versus Elizabeth Windsor, Joseph Ratzenberger et al. And their bodies corporate, the Crown of England and the Church of Rome. It is the unanimous verdict of this court that the 30 defendants and their bodies corporate named in the principal indictment are guilty as charged of committing and concealing crimes against humanity, genocide, and wars of aggression against the people, their children, and their liberties, and of thereby subverting the laws of the commons and of God. These convicted persons and bodies are thereby sentenced to immediate arrest and disestablishment, to the loss of their freedom, the forfeiture of their wealth and property, and to the revoking of their authority, laws, statutes, and governance. All of their agents and officers are forthwith released from their legal obligation towards these convicted persons and bodies corporate, and will stand down from their offices. Having violated her coronation oath to uphold the faith and liberties of the people of the Commonwealth by acting in the interests of a foreign power, namely the Church of Rome, and of thereby committing the treasonable offence of primiciare, the convicted felon, Elizabeth Windsor, aka Queen of England, is no longer the head of the Church of State of England, Canada, or any Commonwealth nation. The former authority of the Crown of England is revoked and nullified, and shall be replaced by constitutional republics established by the people in covenant. This decision of the court stands, I can't see that, it's obviously Latin stare doricus, and carries with it the full effect and enforcement of the law issued on this day, the 25th day of February in the year 2023 in Brussels by the presiding magistrate. That is the International Common Law Court. Now, we also know that the Queen was presented with an Article 61 letter and advice from the barons that they were going to challenge her under Article 61, and that in fact happened too. There has been no legal government since 23rd of March 2001, or no legal crown since then. That court case effectively lays out in common law what they were found guilty of, and could it be argued that from 2013 and that decision, that the powers, let's call it the white hats, I'm starting to go off the white hats, but let's call it the white hats, were then able to start maneuvering Trump into a position for 2016, and the wheel keeps turning. The prosecutions could begin. Obviously, the recoveries of wealth and whatnot would have begun in 2014, because we're talking about something that happened in December or February. So I beg your pardon, February of 2013. So, you know, they could have started recovering the wealth by Christmas that year. And then the trials and everything else seemed to fall into place. I'm not sure how important that document is, but I have a feeling, a strong feeling, that it is quite important to us. So that's why I thought I'd bring it to your attention tonight, given that I've had a couple of absences and we've had a couple of short shows. So let me go back up the top here and see who's in town. Sunflower is in. Thank you to J1 for your donation, mate. Appreciate it for the sticker. Thank you so much. I didn't see that come up as I was talking. I must have been on a different screen. Thank you very much for that. And Sunflower, God love you, woman. $4 at a time, that'll do me. Also, any questions I'm seeing here? Hello, Sandy, beautiful lady. Lovely to see you here. Let's see. Crunch, what have you got? Have you heard about the cruise ship run aground, which they're saying? I haven't heard about that one, but I'm not at all surprised. And I have some people who are going on a cruise, in fact, leaving next Thursday out of Australia. I'd be interested to know how long that cruising is going to last. Although, you know, we'll see. Tony, there's something I wish I'd have seen while I was raving on about Marcia friggin' Langton, worth over $5 million. Yeah, and I reckon she's worth a lot more. It'll be hidden away in a brown paper bag there somewhere. Have no doubt. But she's got to go. She should be so friggin' embarrassed. She should resign every position and just go and live in a humpy somewhere, regain some dignity. Because the woman is just an embarrassment. And if the Yes case are going to roll her out again, and well, I would say nobody could be that stupid, but it is the people in the Yes case, then yeah, bad move. They're also getting into that Mayo bloke, Thomas Mayo, which is great. Mainstream media is finally starting to pick up the threads on him. The fact that he isn't even Aboriginal for the most part, got all sorts of bits in him. And the fact that he's just a militant lefty who is all about making white Australia pay the rent, amongst other interesting taxable ideas he's got. So between, you know, him and this bloody dopey professor, one would think that common sense will prevail, and those two in particular would be taken way out into the outback and given a crash course in how to live on a cement pad in the heat. Oh, I don't know, a couple of weeks, maybe a month. Let's see how they go, hey? See how your $5 million, your pearl necklace, and your nice $2,000 suit goes then, you bitch. Anyway, I'm very angry about it. Probably carrying on a bit, but anyway. Hey, Camillo. I can vouch for that, folks. Camillo has several letters after his name, F and U being one of them, or two of them, should I say. No, not really. And he's definitely not up himself. He's a great man. Camillo, I have put you and the lovely Tammy down for a couple of seats at our launch here on the 30th of September. But I want to talk to you. If there's any others that you'd like to invite from the Sunshine Coast to come down for the night too, then we can arrange that. If you're Gold Coast members and you want to come up for the night and show a bit of support, we'd love to have you. I should mention Darren Bergworth is going to be there. I think Darren's going to be coming up and spending a little bit of time in the southeast corner, and he'll be around the Gold Coast. He'll be around Brisbane. We'll catch up, and he's going to come to the opening of this. You might see a little bit of Darren with me in the not too distant future. We might wind up being travelling partners for a little while when I go down south, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But if you'd like to come and you're a member of another My Place in Brisbane, there's a South Brisbane one, by all means. Jimboomba, I think there's one that started up over Jimboomba way. If you guys want to come over, we'd love to have you. It's a way that we can try and show a bit of support for local business, but more importantly, it's a way for local business to come and join together, find that there are a lot of you, and the plans going ahead, particularly with Unity Hub through My Place, something that every business is going to want to be a part of. So it's pretty exciting times. We'd love to see you at our opening on the 30th. That's the 30th of this month in Redlands. I won't give the address or the name of the business just yet because I know there'll be bloody trolls out there who are going to go and hassle this guy. And he's not going to care, folks. He's not going to care. In fact, you're probably going to cop more of a mouthful by at me, but it'll be fun watching. Anyway, try and save all that bullshit. I'm not going to announce the venue until basically the last minute, but trust me, it's less than 30 minutes drive from Brisbane CBD, and if you can figure yourself out from there, you'll be fine. It's in the Redlands, and I'm happy enough to say it's in Capalaba somewhere, but you figure out how far you are and whether or not you want to come. We'd love to have you. Tickets available from Rachel at vofhq.com, and like I say, only limited ones. Just having a bit of a glance down. Nice to see so many folks in tonight too. Thank you everybody for coming in and joining in what has been less than regular programming of recent. So I do apologise. Doesn't look like there's too many questions for me there at this juncture, but I'm so rapt to see you all having such a wonderful conversation amongst yourselves. A couple of jets, says Shano. What's going on there? A couple of jets along seem to be weather seeding, followed by a dark line in the sky. Anyone noticed that before that? Dark lines in the sky. Haven't noticed the dark lines in the sky. I have noticed, well, I haven't noticed, but Cass has been posting some pictures out of Canberra the last few days. Definitely been some intense spraying down there. And my gorgeous, wonderful friend Malibu Bert in Tasmania has been posting up pictures of what they're doing down in her part of the world. She's, northern-ish end of Tasmania, and I imagine the whole state's being covered. So I was staggered when I was down there last year. In one day, we saw 8 aircraft doing nothing but spraying. It was quite confronting. And when you're down there, they've got nowhere else to hide. These things, staggering, flying just straight up the middle of the state, and then crisscrossing, unbelievable. So, yep, and I think they do it so much down there because off the coast of Tasmania is a very big, mixing point for wind and weather, and so if they can put the particles that they need into the weather pattern and get it blown naturally into a big wind system where it all permeates through there, and then they charge it or do whatever they do to it to make it whatever it is, then they get a bigger coverage area of it. And I'm a bit concerned that you can see black stuff coming out. It might just be exhaust fumes you might have been seeing there, but who knows? Something to be careful of. Stu, yep, they have been very, very naughty, particularly if you're referring to the question. Yep, they're hiding everything from us with the question. Trump did take a letter to the Queen, Marianne. You're quite right. And you will notice that the Queen was subservient to Trump when they were inspecting the troops. She was walking 2 steps behind him. and he was acting like a fool, stumbling and carrying on, and yeah, it was all quite weird. But that was part of his world tour, where he basically presented the evidence to the heads everywhere and said, "We've got it all, and you will either acquiesce or we will, do with it what we will." So that's what they've done. They've been given the chance to either quit what they're doing, admit it, and maybe possibly get their legacy saved, or they'll have their legacy destroyed, their lives destroyed, and their families' lives destroyed. All the wealth will be removed from them. They'll be publicly shamed and embarrassed, and they will die. And any variation of anything in between. So if you were caught and you helped them find others that were in your cabal or in your little group or in your coven, then you might be allowed to have your legacy remain. So your memory would be intact. It's interesting to see how John Farnham's legacy, the voice, has been tarnished, and how badly it's been tarnished. I saw a great meme the other day. What did John Farnham and Miller Lite have in common, or whatever? Was it Bud Light have in common? Well, I don't think there's too much Bud Light being sold anymore, and I don't know that the people who made the decision for John Farnham's track to be used actually did the right one, bearing in mind his legacy and his age. He's not going to be having another, big hit, and considering his medical condition. So they have tarnished his legacy. In fact, many Australians have now said traitor and turned from him. And many more will when they understand the significance of why so many of us feel that way, why he would allow that to happen. And if you've followed anything about the cabal story and the music industry story, you'll know that if you're going to be a big star, you've signed a contract, and that contract has some pretty interesting stipulations to it if you're going to be a success. And let's face it, Farnham was a huge success in Australia. He was also a very big star in Europe, in Germany and France and certain other places. He never cracked America so much, but he did manage to crack just about everywhere else. So his legacy, particularly for Australians, is now permanently tarred by the decision that his song supports the voice. And of course, he's been quietly out of our sight now for some time with a medical issue, and could die tomorrow, and nobody would have seen him in the last 3 or 4 years, like general public. So how would you know? Anyway, just interesting things to ponder on while you're having a cup of tea before you go to bed tonight. Ah, God, Michelle. Yeah, there's a name. How are we going to get the money back out of that bastard? Because he will have leached it into so many rabbit warrens. It'll be very, very difficult to get. But we'll get it. Have no fear. Yep. And there's another bloke down in Victoria too, who I think is out of jail now, but he was in charge of the land council, or what it was back in those days, down in my part of Western Victoria, where I grew up, in the Framlingham Forest. And his name was Jeff Clark. He was investigated and found guilty of all manner of crimes, including assault against women, and various other things. He was also found guilty of stealing money, and I think he's still part of the land council, or whatever the board is that dishes out the money down that part of the world these days. He might not be, but yeah. Nothing wrong with a humpy. Stu, nothing wrong with a humpy. In fact, if you are sleeping rough, a humpy is about the best thing you can build, and all you need to find is a bit of tree or a few bits of tree. No, you'll never get any issues with me and humpies, mate. The corrugated iron ones in summer, probably not going to be a fan, just between you and me. Although I suppose if the wind blows, there's good air conditioning. Yeah. Now, I have heard that the Panama Canal is, well, I don't know that it's stopped, because that would stop global trade again, and that only hurts China. you see, China own most of the boats, right? China own most of the big freighters that are shipping shit around the world because, funnily enough, most of it's manufactured in China. So China at the moment is having a problem with hard currency as well. So to say that China are slowing things down through the Panama Canal would be wrong, because China wants to get as many things to market as fast as they can, because that's the only way that the cash comes in. However, the Panama Canal is definitely being slowed. So why is the question? Well, it keeps the pressure on our supply lines. That's my theory. Our supply lines haven't recovered yet from the disaster where they put the ship sideways there, the Evergrande. And of course, we know what they pulled off that. That was certainly an operation, a military operation. But that whole period essentially brought global shipping to a standstill. It was cheaper for the shipping companies to put the ships at anchor around the canal than it was to have them weigh anchor and go down around the Horn of Africa and back up again the other side. And they thought that even if it was a 2-week wait or whatever it was going to be, it would be cheaper than doing that. And that's why we had thousands and thousands of ships by the end of it that were all queued up. And of course, you can only put 1 or 2 through at a time, I think. And it's a slow process. So it took forever. Maybe the global shipping is starting to pick up again. They're getting, more back in line with the norm. And that is not what, let's call them the white hats, want to happen. The last thing they want is the supply chain ramping up again. That will only provide money going back into cabal hands. So I would say that pinch point is just being squeezed a little bit to try and keep the pressure on the supply lines going forward, at least for the next little while. Christoph, I like your bachelors, mate. Absolutely, skin, knuckles, and mechanics. And I would back your bachelor's degree against the good professor's qualifications any day of the week, mate. Any day of the week. Who else has got a few things here? Just try and read quickly. Oh, there you go. Chris has got the right idea. I don't think I've told you that. Like button, folks. Please hit the like button. And hit the subscribe button. I got my subscriber. Did I tell you this the other night? I may or may not have. I got a message from... I think I just didn't suck it in. Give me a look here. I got a message from YouTube saying, how wonderful, Carl. We're going to give you your stats for last month, which is wonderful. My stats for September. Now, we know that there was quite a few people who did the subscribe thing, but I can tell you that is the number of new subscribers that I got last month. So, or in the month between whatever it is, the 10th and the 10th. So that's how suppression works, folks. You can hit subscribe, you can hit like, but for whatever reason, they are not going to let me grow much beyond 10,700 subscribers on this channel. I do have the other channels. Feel free to go and subscribe there, although it looks like we've got an issue on Rumble tonight for some reason. And I'll have to upload that show or this show later tonight for that. So yeah, YouTube, wonderful folks that they are. That's how it works. So it doesn't matter how many likes and subscribes, but I like to keep testing them, folks. So if you can hit that subscribe button, if you see it, because I'm also getting reports from many people that there is no subscribe button to hit, or there is no like button to hit. So anyway, we know that we're suppressed beyond all measure on that channel, and we are working very hard to deliver a new channel to you that they won't be able to suppress, but we'll have to drive you to it. So be prepared. There'll be another channel that you will be able to like and subscribe soon, and it won't be called The Voice of Freedom or anything like it. And with a bit of luck, we'll get a lot more on there. Yeah, so Aussie Sue, you haven't had them up your way for a while. Got to be happy there. I know they have been coming up and down the coast part, but maybe not the inland route. And I'm just trying to think. Singapore, the flight corridor would be west of you, and Darwin would be west of you. There might be, you might be on a flight path to Japan or not far from there. So I would consider maybe your part of the world doesn't cop it as often, although you do have the HARP heater out your way at Longreach. So there is a HARP installation at Longreach, a weather modification device at Longreach. And if we get up that high, I'll go and take some pictures of it for you. In fact, we might park the van and set up the cameras and do a show from there and see who comes and asks questions. But the seeding that they do for that is slightly different, and during our winter you don't see it used as much. It is during our warmer months, and they'll be warming it up now. It's in the warmer months where they use that, and they do seed extensively through the outback in our warmer months because they can add a bit more moisture or a bit more heat into the atmosphere. And of course, we know that they have these emitters on boats out in the Pacific Ocean as well. And we've seen how they bounced a storm and built it into a huge weather event, and then pulsed it, bent it, sent it towards Brisbane and surrounding areas, and the damage that it created from that sort of flooding. In fact, going back as far as 2011, I swear to you that was a weather modification event. I have never seen a storm encompass the entire length of the east coast of Australia and not move for 5 days and dump inches and inches and inches of rain per day. That had to be a weather modification event, and that was where Brisbane got washed away again in 2011. So they do know how to do it, but for their purposes, I believe that the long-reach emitter is only fired up during our summer, and they use it to bounce the weather systems between themselves, one or two ships out in the Pacific, and the other weather modification system they have at Taroom. So keep an eye on that, and you'll be able to see that. Well, I think the bomber's done another update on their radars, so now maybe you won't see that. But keep an eye out on the weather radars. You can usually see them when they're operating. They leave a really weird pattern on the screen. Okay, let me have a look at this. Stu, am I well or chilly? More importantly, is my daughter okay? Much love. Thank you, brother. Yes, I'm well. I'm just bloody cold. I'm a sook. Queensland weather being what it is beautiful during the day, but if you are out of the sunlight, it's a bit chilly. So the Cali wind cheater is the warmest wind cheater I own, and it gets a bloody flogging. So hence the reason for that. But other than that, yes, I am well. Laura is really good. She has started a job, and I couldn't be happier for her, and she couldn't be happier either. She's for the first time, I think now in what must be 4 years, she's working, she's making her own money, and she's able to go and do things that she wants to do without having to beg money out of me or anybody else for that matter. So it's made a huge difference to her psychologically as well. She's starting to step up. So I'm very proud of her, and once again, I don't think we'd be in this position if it wasn't for you wonderful people. The effect that you've had on her and this movement has had on her has been life-changing for her, certainly, and for me. And I can't thank you enough. I've said it I don't know how many times, but you have given me my daughter back, and I will work for you for the rest of my life to pay that off. Thank you. because it was a real risk there at times. We didn't know if we were going to keep her or not. So yeah, it's bloody great. I'm really happy. She's really happy, and she's doing something that she loves doing. So I'm rapt for her. And like I say, couldn't be doing it without your support and the help that you guys have given her. Sandy, you got a lot of yes voters down your way. Well, yeah, it is sad. I don't quite understand. I gather that a lot of them might be tied up close to land councils or feel that's where their best bet's coming from with the money. There is a lot of misinformation that's being given to our Aboriginal brothers and sisters or our tribal brothers and sisters about voting yes, as in if you vote yes, you'll be eligible for some compensation, or vote yes, you'll be eligible for this, that, or the other benefit. This is, I would say, at best, it's false advertising. At worst, it's outright lies. So I don't know how many of the people down your way are aware of those sorts of lies being peddled, or whether or not they would even believe them coming from a white person. I don't know. I think that's probably a battle we're going to have to fight. I take solace in the fact that those that identify as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander should be less than 4% of the population. However, if you decided to go in and get your Centrelink adjusted so that you identify it as a transgender LBTQBABC, then who knows? I'm not sure. But rest assured, we will sort it out in the end, I hope. And maybe with conversations coming up, and there was a very powerful Cindy, the lady from Northern Rivers, I think she's from Lismore, was on 2GB. You may have heard her very powerful talkback radio spot with a guy last weekend or the weekend before, where she had a very powerful say about how the Aboriginal people have not been consulted. The elders have not been consulted. In fact, the elders have been locked away in nursing homes and taken off country, taken from their country in many cases, so that they can't participate in the discussions. And that's a problem because in many tribal cultures, the elders are the ones that say what happens. So if they're no longer there to give that sort of guidance, then you'll see those government shiny ass bloody bureaucrat and publicly paid pricks come in and brainwash the locals, tell them how they should be thinking and voting. I'm sure there is an element of that happening in your part of the world, Sandy. I'm sorry. But there is plenty of other people available to speak out about it for the yes vote. And all we need to do is get a couple of them on here. I must get Auntie Glenda on before the vote. Maybe you can let people know that she'll come on. I'm sure she'll come on and be very vocal in support of the no proposition. China having big problems with floods, Peg. Yes, they are. I have heard that, and we've heard it before, but I've heard that Three Gorges Dam is under a great deal of pressure. There was a prediction some years ago that Three Gorges Dam had to go, not because of it storing up all the water, but because of what was under it. Now, there's a chance maybe they've cleaned all that out and they're just going to flood it in a different way, but that would leave it open to be opened again at some point. And I'm led to believe that if there are operations going on, then those operations are to make sure that those sorts of areas are never to be able to be used or reconstituted again. So they're destroying them. And that's why things like a rod of God was going to be employed, as far as I'm aware, to destroy the Three Gorges Dam. And that, of course, would create major flooding downstream. There would be a lot of people killed, a lot of innocent people killed. And this stretches all the way from Cambodia down to Vietnam. It would be a huge, huge amount of water that comes out of that establishment if they were to break the dam. So something to be aware of. And if you're planning on a trip to China, well, stand on the high side of the dam would be my advice. Just seeing if there's any more questions here. Oh, the cruise ship stuck in Greenland. Is that what it's? Yeah, righto. Yeah, it could be the cover story for it too, or it could be that they're just infecting everybody on it and sending them back out into the world. Like I say, the AFL Grand Final coming up. That's probably going to be a spreader event, or what they're going to try and tell us. And people in Victoria, God love you, they've nailed you hard, and there are so many eyes wired shut folks in Victoria that people are just maybe just brainwashed enough to swallow the message again and go and don the masks and lock themselves up. God, I hope not. I hope not. And if you are in a group or community like that, then get to a My Place. Get to a My Place, because you're going to need that support, and you'll find it at a My Place. And if there isn't a My Place near you, then start one. myplace.org.au. And rest assured, Darren Bergwerf and his crew will be in touch. Set one up and get yourself established. We will come and visit. We'll come and do some shows for you, promote the place. We want your My Place to be successful. So get in touch. We really want to help. Having a bit of a glance. Subscribed already. Can't have already. Yeah, thanks, Mick. Good try. 110 likes tonight. I see one. There you go. I see one like on my screens here tonight. But wow, there you go. Saw a chemtrail out at Moree today. Yes, I saw a couple of notices from people on the Gold Coast, and Canberra today was another one too. Somebody sent me, Mick sent me a photo of a Virgin flight, a Sydney-Brisbane Virgin flight that just turned on the spray when they reached the southern end of the Gold Coast and turned it off when they reached the northern end. It was that simple. It was only that little bit of a line. They were only spraying that section. So might have been coming into land by then. I suppose you don't want to be seen coming in over Brisbane spraying that shit. But yeah, it certainly is happening, and continues to happen with the smaller aircraft too, under the guise of surveying. Some of these areas they're surveying, they've surveyed 30 or 40 times this year. Still can't get any information or answers out of the companies that are doing these surveys. They're not telling us what they're surveying, although I do believe in some cases it is wildlife. They're looking for deer, wild deer. And the wild deer population is measured. They're also looking for kangaroos and large mobs of kangaroos and that kind of thing. But one would have to ask the question, why would they be looking for them in downtown Townsville or Maryborough or the Gold Coast? I can understand out in the hinterland, that kind of thing, yep. But not too many deer running around the streets of the Gold Coast, I'm pretty sure. So, Stu, lots of hugs, loving that. Kev, okay, so you're on Voice of Freedom, yeah? We've got about 3,800 subscribers on Voice of Freedom, and I think that if you go to Voice of Freedom on YouTube, you will be able to subscribe to that channel because it's monetized. It's not monetized. The only monetized channel I have is None2K, and because I'm so suppressed on it, I never make any money out of it, and that's not the goal. I only set it up to monetize it when I first started all this, because I thought, well, if you're going to do this, I'll turn that on and see what happens. I never thought I would get 4,000 viewing hours and 1,000 people to follow me to enable me to actually monetize anything. So it was a shock. And then the next shock was YouTube's, when they discovered that people were following me. I picked up 7,000 followers in 3 weeks, and we were over 10,000, or well, under 10,000. We were at 9,800 or something forever. And eventually ticked over 10,000, and it is just ground away ever since. We know that they were suppressing Simeon's channel as well, but they got onto him late. He had 256,000 subscribers, and his monetization was paying on that subscriber base. I didn't, and I didn't have any kind of that sort of numbers. And I can tell you, for even 10,000 subscribers, you don't get paid more than $100 or something. My last YouTube monetization payment was $112. So yeah, nobody's making a fortune out of YouTube. But hopefully we won't have to play that game. Monetization is not the goal with what we do at Voice of Freedom. And that's why there are so many other channels you can go and watch that don't offer monetization. Voice of Freedom is one. There is another channel called Voice of Freedom on YouTube. I think it's similar. It's got another 3,000 or 4,000 there. Rumble, I think, is up to 4,500 followers there nowadays. And there's a couple of other channels that have got a few thousand following it. So yeah, we have a mixed bag. It's hard to tell exactly how many followers there are for the program, but by the email support, by the text support, by the messaging that we get, and by word of mouth contacts that ring us, we're obviously reaching a fair audience, and they seem to be liking what they're seeing. So thank you. If that's you, really appreciate it. And it's because of you that we're able to go out and step it up a level now. I will go and pick the vehicle up tomorrow, and it will go and get some work done next week on it to make it look a little more presentable. And from there, on September the 30th at our My Place launch in the Redlands, and then we'll hit the road. So if you are in Victoria and you are in Echuca or Bairnsdale and you want to get to learn a bit more about gold and silver and self-managed super funds, then the Ainsley Bullion team and Cass Smith from Freedom Financial Solutions will be in town doing a seminar and letting you know exactly the ins and outs of the process. And I can tell you it's very easy, very simple. And once you've, and I've spoken to a few people who've been through the process and have gone and picked up, a kilo or a couple of kilo bars of gold, that is theirs to take home and look after. It is their wealth, their security in charge. Well, in their charge. It's not waiting around for some shiny ass bureaucrat or some numpty in a super fund to get the message to sell, and then you get the letter saying, "Oh, gee, there was a financial crash and you lost everything. Sorry about that." Because that's what my bet is going to happen. So get out of big super, get into precious metals. And if you want to learn more about it, 12th of October in Echuca at the Rich River Golf Club. There's another event happening in Bairnsdale. Haven't got the name of it, of the venue on the top of my head. Another one a couple of weeks later in Rosebud. And then there is a series throughout Queensland and northern New South Wales going late October, November. So we'll give you details as they come to hand. But if you're interested, signal that, send us an email to rachel@vofhq.com, and we will make sure that you're advised when we're coming to town. Yeah, mate. It happens, doesn't it? It happens. Yeah, Ricardo did mention chemtrails have been stopped. Mentioned that it might be friendly spraying, trying to counteract whatever was going on. That too could be the case. Nobody can really confirm or deny either way, unfortunately. JJ, love what you're talking about. Jesus defeats the Freemason and the witchcraft and the Satanists all in one. Love it. Yeah, I'm wondering whether or not I didn't see the broadcast, but I'm wondering if they delayed it or if they remember when Clive Palmer went down there and they actually put it on delay so that they could cut out anything they didn't like him saying from the broadcast. It'd probably be a very brave ABC shiny ass bureaucrat who went and did that to a sitting politician, but yeah, anything's possible. I'm surprised they actually gave her a stand, but once again, she is a sitting politician and probably doesn't get much of a choice. I have no doubt she would have had something very good to say, and she's pretty good at sticking it up elbow at the moment. Doesn't he look like a rabbit in the headlights? I mean, seriously, what a wanker. Anyway, that's an interesting thing you're showing up there. 100,000 prisoners in Greenland. Might explain why there's a cruise ship pulled up. They do turn them into prisons and hospital ships in times of crisis. You know that, don't you? Just saying. Yes, Dan, I think, Stu, you've got that right. If you do want to visit China, go to Dan Andrews' office in Glen Waverley in Victoria, and you'll get a very good taste. Yes, floods in Libya. I have seen a little bit about it. I don't know anything more than it, some sort of weather system. The other flood that I saw that I probably took more notice of happened in Italy, where a wine or a winery had one or two of their big wine barrels break, and somewhere close to 3 million litres of wine rushed through the town's streets, thankfully downhill. So, yeah, that was the only flood I really saw much of today. Russ, what you're talking about with the Channel 7, they are not Channel 7 people as such, as staffers. From what I understand, they are competitors in a competition that has been filmed already. It just hasn't been aired. And I don't know whether or not Channel 7 will air the program now that these charges are pending over these woman. And is it her partner as well, or is it just the woman? Apparently very serious assault and sexual assault charges, child abuse charges. And it would depend, from a programming perspective, it would depend how important a role that person played in the filming of the show and how much of the show had been crafted around that person's interactions. So think of The Block, for instance. If you've got a character on The Block who is the nemesis of everybody on The Block, everybody hates him, you've got to have one of those people in every one of those sorts of shows, because you can't love everybody. You've got to be able to pick favorites. So in shows like The Block, they nuance those people, psychological, not training, but they do profiling on the contestants, so that they're not putting like-minded people together. They want sparks, they want friction, they want difference. Because if you were all thinking and feeling and doing the same, it'd be bloody boring television. So that's how they do that. And then the producers, you'll have your own producer and your own camera team that follow you, and they will sculpt from your actions a TV show. Now, you've heard so many times, I'm sure, that people said, "Oh, look, we weren't treated kindly in the edit." Well, that's what they're talking about. In the edit, you can make anybody say or do practically anything, and it could be opposite to what they actually said. It's all a matter of context and placement and where you do things, and that's the beauty of editing. You can move shit around. So they create drama for those sorts of programs. Anyway, I think we've probably talked enough tonight with dramas and all that sort of shit. I was about to get on a topic that I could go on for hours. I won't. Let me see if there's any more questions down the back end here for me. I did hear that today, Bill. They've found TNT residue in the Maui water supply. Yeah, there's been lots of interesting things found in samples of the Maui bush, including aluminium, barium, and all sorts of bits. So one would suggest that if we are being sprayed with aluminium and barium, and it's not all being caught up in the wind and blown out to sea or turning into something in a storm, then it is falling to the ground and going into our leaf litter and all that sort of stuff. And of course, given the right temperature, it's extremely flammable. We've seen what the temperatures that were generated in Maui and the temperatures that were generated in the East Coast here in Australia, down in New South Wales a few years ago. They are unheard of bushfire temperatures, unheard of. Far too hot to just be normal bushfire. So could these additives that they've been spraying into our bushland raise the temperature of those fires, the base temperature? Absolutely. Absolutely. Could they raise it 1,000 degrees? Maybe. I don't know. But probably would depend on how much of that shit was there. But they've been spraying an awful lot of it, and they've been spraying it for years. And there are areas I'm not sure that I've actually got the map here to show you, but I should grab it out for tomorrow night. A map was released today of the extreme fire danger areas where they think bushfires could happen this year. Basically, draw a line on the east coast from Ballina north to just south of Cairns and out into Western Queensland. And you've got pretty much all of Queensland as a bushfire risk. A small area in the Northern Territory that isn't so bad. The rest of Northern Territory, Western Australia, are a huge fire risk, and a huge fire risk down through Victoria and New South Wales. So we have plenty of scope for fires. We know they're not going to go and burn the southeast corner again because they cleaned that out last time. It's unlikely they're going to go back into the ranges around Melbourne because that's had a couple of big bites. The black range, the Blackall, not Blackall ranges. What are they called? Just north of Melbourne, Yarra Valley. You know what I mean. Black Spur. The Black Spur range, while it's probably all grown back and there's still a heap of leaf litter there, they've been through there. They've been through the southeast corner. They've got their train corridor done through there now. No, if I was a betting man, I would bet on fires in the back of the Gold Coast, the back of the Sunshine Coast, and potentially northern New South Wales areas. You want to look for areas where there is lots of growth and lots of population. And those hinterland areas particularly are big ones. I would also be careful inland of Mackay, inland of Townsville, and south of Townsville. I think that there's potential for a lot of created fire in those areas, and that's just on what we saw when we did our little trip up there earlier this year. So yeah, it's going to be a full-on summer, and people are watching pretty closely. I know that there are eyes on military bases all over Australia waiting for the arrival of aircraft that look like that they could be using a laser or something similar. We have heard that there is at least one of those aircraft expected in Australia in the next couple of weeks, and we know of 3 particular bases where it's likely to be based. So we're keeping an eye on those, and if we get some pictures of it, we'll let you know that it's in town. If it does come to town, may I suggest, folks, you might want to go and get a sprinkler system for your roof, or certainly do some clearing around your property if that's the case, because if that thing comes to town, there's going to be some big fires. You won't have to worry about the dickheads on the road then, I can tell you. Listen up! There is a